Hello, hello, and welcome back to Black Girl Diamonds. My name is Emily, and I love diamond painting. Thank you so much for being here. I know I have not done a whip and chat in a while, but here we are. We have a whip and chat. I'm really excited because we're starting on a new project. But before I get into the project, I really hope that everybody is doing well and that you are all having a fantastic week. TGIF, because it is finally Friday. And I don't know about y'all, but I'm ready for the weekend, even though I'm working this weekend, but whatevs. Actually, this is going to be a really good weekend because a friend of mine is celebrating her 40th this weekend. So I get to go to that. I was originally going to go to SummerSlam up in Minneapolis this weekend, but I canceled my trip, you guys. And the reason why I canceled it is because while I want to go, I don't want to go. If that like kind of makes sense, I don't know if it does, but I kind of had like this moment this week where, I just got back from Washington, D.C. and, just being back in my apartment and hanging out with my dog. And I'm like, do I really want to get up and drive 4 hours? Yeah, I would love to go, but it's just not what I want to do. So there will be other opportunities for me to see PLE events with WWE. And this just isn't the one, and that's okay. So anyway, so what are we working on today? We are working on, drum roll please, we are working on the Little Ristorante by Christina Yen from Diamond Art Club. So this is a massive diamond painting, you guys. I mean, I had to bring up a bigger table to really fit this canvas on. I'm actually going to raise this up a bit so you guys can actually see more of the square that I'm going to be working on today. But yeah, so it is, like I said, this is a huge canvas. I'm not really sure what the size is, but it's a big one. It takes up the majority of the table that I recently brought up. And it has so many colors that it took 2 Elizabeth Ward trays for me to kit up in. So we're going to do this section here. So this is actually really interesting. Why is there what you see as a 12 maybe, but it's actually the number 21 because everything is upside down for some reason. But why is there a number here? There's actually numbers all over this canvas. What I wanted to do with this canvas is I didn't want to just do a row and then a row and then a row. I kind of wanted to make it fun a little bit. So I took 2 of my die that I have. These are from the set of Dungeons and Dragons die that I was recently gifted from a friend. And so I took the 20-sided die, and then I think this other one has 9, I believe. The 9-sided die from my set, which are these really pretty purple colors. And when I'm ready to diamond paint, I roll for a section. So on this canvas here, I was able to get, I believe, 74 sections. And this was after I had actually completed 4 sections down in the corner. I really wanted to do the cannoli, so I did the cannoli. But with that being said, though, I just decided, hey, I'm going to go ahead and just number each section and go from there. So the one that I rolled this time, it was off camera, but I promise I rolled it, was 21. So I went ahead and I marked everything off here and decided, hey, you know what? Let's go ahead and get some diamond painting done while I do my whip and chat for this week. So I have my notes right here of what I want to talk about. Let's move my dice to the side. What am I using today? I'm using Old Faithful. So I have my Diamond Art Club pointy tweezers. I have my thin 7 placer with the single placer. I have my 2 and 3 placer here for those mini spots. And then I also have my OG with putty in this end in the single tip. And then I have wax in my 9 placer and my tried and true Muni Made small tray with the grid lines. And then you guys remember I put washi tape in the bottom. So let's go. Let's get to work. So what's the first thing that I want to talk about today? Let's talk about DC. Oh my God, you guys. DC was incredible. So my DC trip was a lot of fun. I was a little worried to go since I, was having some health issues that I had talked about in my vlog before I left, but everything was fine. I was in a little bit of pain because I got my monthly while I was there. And just with everything that kind of happened, the doctors had told me that my monthly was probably going to be a little bit more painful than it usually is, and they did not disappoint. So yeah, so my monthly was definitely very painful this time around, but I was able to get through it, you know. I mean, I'm a girl, so you just kind of have to do it. But so let's talk a little bit about the conference. So the conference that I went to was really about community planning, education, and then the Gear Up grant. So we went there, and it was kind of like two conferences happening at once because we ended up taking essay winners. So about 150 students from across the country were able to go to this conference for the Youth Leadership Summit, where they really got to work and build on their leadership skills, meet kids from across the country, and also just take time and enjoy our nation's capital. And then for all of us adults and chaperones, we had a full 2.5 day conference where we went to sessions that would really help us advance our programs and just really bring more awareness to the grant and really what it is that we're doing for kids as they look at their post-secondary options as early as the 7th grade. So, you know, if you are interested to know more about the Gear Up grant, I would definitely look into it because it very well could be in your kids' schools. And it's a lot of really awesome opportunities that they provide for students when it comes to just really trying to figure out what it is that you want to do when you become a grown up. You know, do you want to go to a 2 or 4 year college? Do you want to learn a trade? Do you want to go into the military? It's really all about career and college exploration, which I really think our kids need right now because there are so many different influences and people telling them and just things out there telling them that, you know, they need to go up, down, left, or right. And you know, I really think one of the best things for most kids is just to try something and see how it looks and see how it fits. So that was basically like the conference that I went to. I went to some really awesome sessions and I stayed at the Washington Hilton, which was a very nice hotel. My hotel room was incredibly cozy, which I really appreciated. And it was also close to the elevator, so there's nothing wrong with that. So that like the first, you know, like I said, the first 3.5 days that I was there was all about the conference. And then the half day of the third day, I guess, I ended up I stayed in DC and came and we got an Airbnb and we explored the city together for the next few days. You guys, we did everything. I think one of the best things about Washington, D.C. is the fact that all of the museums are free because they are all federally funded. Okay. So there are just oodles of things that you could be doing and seeing and looking at and exploring. And so what we did was we decided to pick what museums that we wanted to go to. And so we picked a handful. We went to the National Museum of African American History and Culture. We went to the Air and Space Museum. We went to the Museum of Asian Art. We went to the Museum of African Art. There was like a small exhibit in the old Smithsonian Castle that's still there. I mean, we went to the National Archives. We did all of the things that DC had to offer. And we also ate our way through DC, which, of course, because I am a true, tried and true fat kid, that was my favorite part. But yeah, like we did everything. And then I think also the other cool thing is that we got to do everything via public transportation. So we rode the train everywhere. Well, mainly just to get down to like the National Mall and stuff like that. We also ended up going to the Capitol, which was great. We did not go to the White House for obvious reasons, but we went to the Lincoln Memorial, and the Vietnam and the Korean vet memorials. We went to the Martin Luther King statue. God, like we did so much and I really enjoyed myself. My primary goal with this trip was not to like go crazy on buying like souvenirs and stuff because that's just not really what I do anymore. The only thing I really wanted was whatever kind of like free literature was around and postcards. That was what I spent my money on, was postcards. I didn't get a ton of postcards. I got about 2 or 3 postcards for every museum and place that we went. And I also got like a map of DC that I'm going to decorate in a journal. And I'm going to make a really cute like travel notebook scrapbook. I will say this though, with me, first of all, me going on this trip was phenomenal because I have not been outside of the state of Iowa in a while. Last time I left was sometime last year. I had to fly out to New York because I had my uncle passed away. And so I went out there. I was out there for a couple of days and came back relatively quickly. But other than that, like I haven't really like gone anywhere and like enjoyed myself and had any kind of semblance of a vacation. And so for me to go for work and then stay for play was just so great. Shout out to my friend because he was a phenomenal navigator. We would get up every morning and he already knew what train we needed to take, what time we needed to be at the train station, and what time. There were a couple of museums that we had to reserve passes for, so that was another really awesome thing. And he was just a true godsend on this trip. Not saying that I couldn't have done it all on my own, but it was really awesome to experience the nation's capital with him. So that was a lot. Other things that I really enjoyed about DC were definitely the food. Oh my god, like there was this place called Rice Bar, and it was kind of like build your own rice or noodle bowl, and that was really delicious. We ended up eating there twice, and then we also ate at this really awesome like hole in the wall chicken and waffle spot that was right by our Airbnb. Then we ate at another chicken spot that was like a little bit more trendy, but it was equally or just as delicious. And then like the people in DC are really nice too. And I don't know, like I know I'm not saying a lot, but I feel like I'm saying a lot. I just had a great time. And also my flights there and back were smooth. The only crappy thing I think about going to DC was coming back to Iowa, and we were in an extreme heat advisory. So it was ridiculously hot outside, like 0 out of 10. Do not recommend, do not go outside. And I did not go outside. But I had to go outside the next day because I had to work, even though it was incredibly hot as I was delivering for Amazon. But, it is what it is. But I do feel like I'm like fully rested and like not jet lagged. I ended up taking like a 3-hour nap when I came home. And then I ended up, like I said, I went to work that night. And then, like, I've just been, like, really catching up on my sleep, which was great because I feel like, anytime you leave home, it's like you can sleep, but, like, do you sleep comfortably? And I can honestly say that, like, I slept comfortably, but I was still tired. And I was mainly just tired from all of the walking. So I do feel like I'm definitely up and back to normal. So the DC trip though was great. Highly recommend if you've never been. I went to DC with spending money. So I set a spending budget of $500. I came back with some money because again, I was really only buying food. But again, I think it's a great trip, especially if you have kids, I would say like middle school, like high school, teenage years that are really interested in history and art. That's the perfect place. And again, all of the museums were free because they are all federally funded. So definitely check that out. So many amazing sights to see in our nation's capital. So that was DC. I wanted to also say that, like, for everyone that has commented on my video where I'm talking about like my health scare and stuff like that, thank you so much for commenting your well wishes and checking in. I'm doing a lot better. I did go ahead and set up a follow up with an OB that I have here in a couple of weeks just to double check and make sure that everything's good and nothing else is ruptured. So I have that coming up. And like I said, like I'm feeling a lot. I'm feeling a lot better. And again, if you think your body is telling you something, listen to it. That's really like the best advice that I could give you. I'm not a doctor. I'm not anyone of like a point of significance like that at all. But I'm just saying, like, if there's something wrong, get yourself checked out because, you don't want a small problem to essentially become a big problem because nobody wants that. As for, okay, cool. So wait, there's one other thing I want to talk about in DC. So in my vlog, I believe I ended my vlog and I was talking about how I took two mini dazzle sets with me. So I took the 80s mini dazzle sets and art supplies, right? Because I was like, oh, like if I get bored, especially like when the night's over with the conference and I'm just in my room hanging out, I want to, maybe diamond paint a little bit, right? Cool, cool, cool. So during the conference, I did not diamond paint. Like I was so dead by the time I got back to my room and the conference was over for the day. I just zoned out and I ended up just watching Disney movies actually because it was a smart TV and I can hook up my Disney Plus. So I was actually like really happy about that. But the thing that like kind of got me was again, like I was just freaking tired every day. So that Wednesday when me and my friend finally got together and we got in our Airbnb and we had went to the monuments and stuff like that and had dinner, we got back to the Airbnb and I was still up and I was feeling pretty good. And I was like, oh, I'm going to work on my diamond paintings. So I go to start kitting up my diamond painting. And usually when I kit up, I pour all of my diamonds into my tray. And then from there, I just pour everything into the container. And I have like those little vials, right? Here's the thing, guys. Quickly realized I did not have a diamond painting tray. I left trusty old faithful right here in Iowa. So I did not do any diamond painting while I was in DC. And to be quite honest, I think I'm okay with that. Like I ended up actually like, because like one of the things that I was actually really afraid of with traveling with someone, because in all honesty, y'all, the last man I traveled with was my ex-husband. And I've been divorced for 4 years. So I was really nervous because I'm the type of person where I like my alone time. I like my quiet time. But he absolutely understood the assignment. And so I actually was able to get some writing done for my Substack, which I was really happy about. And then I ended up also writing out some stuff that I want to implement with work from the conference. And it was really nice because, it was like, hey, I'm, going to zone out on my laptop and do this stuff. And he was like, cool, I'm going to watch anime. I'm going to do this. What I'm really coming full circle to say is that it was really nice to be with somebody that can entertain themselves. Unlike my ex-husband, whom I had to entertain all the time, hence why I am divorced. So that was like a really, really big thing for me, I think, was to, be able to spend some time with someone, have a good time in DC, but also respect their space and what they may need in order to decompress, which was really, really great and really, really helpful. But since I've been back, what does my week look like? Oh my God. This week has been a little on the crazy side for a few different reasons. I mean, don't get me wrong. I am incredibly happy that I am home. But I feel like as soon as I touch down in Iowa on Sunday, like I just kind of hit the ground running and I've been running ever since. And so the fact that I'm home this evening, even I'm not working because I worked this morning and I'm just, chatting with y'all and working on my diamond painting to me is kind of awesome. Again, I have plans this weekend, but the fact that I just have this time right now is really great. So anyway, so let's talk about my week. And I'll try not to repeat this on my vlog this weekend, but you never know. So, let's talk about my week. So, on Monday I worked a couple of I worked one Amazon shift because we were still in a heat advisory. And then I ran some errands on Monday and was pretty chill. I ended up actually finishing Tulips Galore. So that one is done. I need to do the review on it this weekend when I actually have some time. I just haven't had the time to do it this week. But it was chef's kiss, 10 out of 10. Like I absolutely loved everything about that painting. You guys kind of already know that though, because I've definitely talked about that a lot. But Dreamer Design Rounds, chef's kiss, like no notes. So I finished Tulips Galore, I believe on Monday. I just sat and just kind of did it. I ended up also making myself some dinner for the week. So I made chicken and rice in the crock pot because it was way too hot to turn on the oven. Did a little bit of grocery shopping, but not much. And then just really planned out my week with working Amazon because this is the last week where I can like kind of work Amazon during the day because I go back to work on Monday for the school. So that was my Monday, right? My Tuesday worked Amazon, worked a couple of shifts. I also got an oil change, which is just something that I needed to have done. Not like it was kind of that point where it's like, oh my God, I really hope my car doesn't blow up because I don't even know when the last time I had an oil change, which false. I had it in February, but still, right? So got my oil changed on Wednesday, hung out with a friend of mine. We ended up like just playing video games all night, which was a lot of fun. And then yesterday, no, video games was last night. So I'm talking about I got my oil changed on Tuesday. I don't know what day it is. Today is Thursday, actually, when I'm recording this. So then on Wednesday, woke up feeling great. Okay. I was like, man, like I'm really happy that like I got my oil changed, like, my car, like poor Sheila has just, that's what I named my vehicle. Poor Sheila has really been through a lot this year. Her tire, I shredded a tire earlier this summer, and she ended up getting new shoes in June. And, just with me having to like drive for Amazon and stuff like that, like, it's a lot of wear and tear, but she's a trooper. She's a 2021 Volkswagen Jetta. We love her. She's definitely like my ride or die, right? So yesterday I'm driving to work, I'm driving to the depot, and there's a cement truck in front of me, y'all. And what happens? The cement truck kicks up a rock smacks the shit out of my windshield. There is a golf ball size hole in my windshield. And you guys, I was so startled and shooketh when it happened and immediately angry because I'm like, I just was talking about how things are going really well and how I'm really happy that I, got my oil changed, and boom. The only thing I honestly thought when that happened, you guys, was the cash register sign, because I was like, great, now I'm gonna have to spend money that I probably don't have. So I ended up working my shift though, and sometimes when you have that time to think, it was like, let's think logically about this and not crash out. Because listen, I'm a Pisces. I'm a March Pisces. I am the crash out queen. But something told me that like crashing out about this is not going to help your situation in the least. So, a couple of things. First of all, by the grace of God, I am alive and I am okay. I think that's like the number one thing that I really had to center myself and think about, because in the grand scheme of things, you guys, when I was driving yesterday, I was going like 70 miles an hour. I was doing 70 miles an hour and that rock hit my window. And I was able to maintain my composure, maintain the vehicle. I didn't swerve. I kept straight and I just kept going. By the grace of God, because windshields are actually double layered. If you didn't know that, they absolutely are. Otherwise, people would break their windshields all the time. But windshields are actually double layered with tempered glass. And by the grace of God, it only cracked the first layer of the window. It did not crack the second, because the second, my face is there, right? So that did not happen. And that again is by the grace of God. And then the third thing is that I am really proud of myself for remaining calm and not swerving the vehicle to potentially endanger not only myself or somebody else. Yes, do I wish the car would have hit, do I wish the chunk would have hit, or the rock would have hit the roof of my car? Absolutely. Any other part of my car, it absolutely could have hit. But instead, it decided to hit my windshield. And the fact that it hit my windshield as I was driving in the morning going 70 miles an hour, which was the speed limit, by the way. Again, that's God. And I can't be mad at God for protecting me in that moment. And so that's all I got. So I worked my shift for the day, and then I went to go get a quote. I kind of did a little bit of Google research when my shift was over before I got back on the road to come back to Des Moines. And it said, like Google research was like, hey, new windshields anywhere from, $600 to $1,200. And I was like, okay, well, that's how much money I'm going to spend. Right. So I go to the place and the lady's like, yeah, we're definitely going to have to replace your windshield. This is not a temp fix or anything like that. And I ended up getting a quote with a $50 discount of $325. That includes the part and the labor, bro. And I'm like, God looking out for me again, because does Emily have an extra $600 to $1,200? No. Does Emily even really have an extra $300? Not really, but I can make that work, and again, if that means that I can't go to SummerSlam because I need to buy a new windshield so I can drive my vehicle safely, it is what it is. That's called being an adult. And while most days I will say that being an adult is ghetto as hell, 0 out of 10, do not recommend. In this instance, I'm alive. So be an adult. So yeah, so that happened yesterday. Car is totally fine to drive though for right now. And so my appointment to get my new windshield is next week. In the meantime, I also do have to buy the most expensive sticker I buy every year, which is my vehicle registration tomorrow. Not looking forward to it, but has to get done. And also, too, with talking about like wrestling, granted, I am not going to SummerSlam, but I am going to Monday Night Raw because that will be here in town. So I'm going to go to that because it's my best friend's birthday. And I told her months ago that we were going to go. So we have that going on. So yeah, so that's kind of like been my week a little bit. I also I had to go to the dentist yesterday. So, on top of having this rock smack the shit out of my car, excuse me, I also had to go to the dentist yesterday and get a deep cleaning done on my teeth because I go to the dentist every 3 months because, why not? But even with that, I was able to, pay my copay with my flexible spending account, like the money that I, allocate from my paycheck to go to that. It's blessings on blessings on blessings at this point, and I cannot be mad about anything. So yeah, so that's kind of like been my week so far. Like I said, like this weekend, I'm going to a birthday party. I'm having dinner with friends tomorrow night, which I'm pretty excited about because one of my friends is actually cooking for us. So that'll be really fun. Sunday, just work. And then Monday Night Raw and going back to work. So there is something though that I want to talk about on this WIP Chat. So I think I had said this prior in one of my videos. It might have actually been in my first WIP Chat that, you know, I live my life. I wake up every day. I put my pants on one leg at a time like everybody else. I put my socks and shoes on one at a time like everybody else. But I think the number one thing that I wake up as every day and I go to bed as every day is a Black woman. Point blank, period. And one of the things that I am always going to speak about and talk about, regardless of whatever platform I'm on, is the fact that I'm a Black woman and what my experience being a Black woman is, what the experience of Black people is in this country. And I feel like when we don't do that, when we don't really kind of have those conversations, they get lost in the sauce. And that's probably why the majority of our population here in America is actually uncomfortable talking about race. Because when we talk about race, some people actually think that talking about race means that, you're favoring one race over the other. No, you're talking about the trials and tribulations that one race might experience so that it creates an environment of understanding and an environment where things are truly and really capable of changing. An example of this actually would be outside of me. And trust me, all of this is going to come around. I promise it's all going to make sense. I'm going to land the plane. All of this actually really speaks very similar to something that actually happened last week. So for all my football girlies that might know this, Ryan Clark and a host of other ESPN analysts were recently fired. They were not laid off. I don't care what anyone says. They were fired from the network. Ryan Clark specifically, who was a 12-year employee of ESPN that still had, I believe, 2 years left on his contract. He's also a 12-year veteran of the NFL. He won a Super Bowl with the Pittsburgh Steelers, defeating the Arizona Cardinals, I believe, in 2009, I believe it was. Yeah, something like that. Anyway, but he was let go, and Ryan Clark has and always will be a very outspoken Black man who speaks on issues that are incredibly important, not only to Black people, but also to Black athletes. He also is co-host of the Pivot podcast with Channing Crowder and Fred Taylor, who are also two former football players who saw a lot of success during their runs in the NFL. And I think what I love about Ryan Clark, aside from his style, and his suits and how he always calls Stephen A. Smith to the table when he's clearly wrong, which is a lot. But I really appreciated that the fact of the matter that he always spoke about issues when it came to Black players. He always spoke about unfair treatment. He always spoke about how the playing field is never level. And he always spoke about how, as Black people, we are always taught in our families that we have to be better, faster, stronger than everybody else in the room to only get half the credit. or even a tenth of it. So when he was fired, and he actually was informed that he was fired while he was on air, which ESPN do better. I just think that he ended up going on the Pivot podcast and talking about this. And he basically said what we all kind of thought, and that it was incredibly bogus. And one of the reasons why ESPN let him go is because he was that outspoken person that it didn't matter. I'm going to speak on issues of race because there is a lived intersectionality between race and football. I mean, for God's sakes, Bear Bryant, the famed football coach of the Alabama Crimson Tide, did not want Black people on his team. There was a myth that went on for years that Black men couldn't be quarterbacks because they didn't have the intellectual capacity to make audible game time decisions when things were happening in the game. Now, half of the league has a starting Black quarterback. There is an intersectionality between race and everything. And believe it or not, there is an intersectionality between race and the crafting world. So it has been on my podcast agenda for a long time because don't forget, I have a podcast, Black Girl Iowa. Go check it out wherever you stream your podcast. But one of the things that I've really wanted to talk about on the podcast are about Black women and their hobbies. I have done an episode about Black women being exhausted with having to deal with microaggressions in the workplace coming from white counterparts and things like that. But one of the things that I really want to talk about is Black women in the crafting space and how underrepresented we actually are. I am really blessed to have found certain communities and spaces online on Facebook where it is Black women enjoying crafting, whether it be planners and paper and stickers, Legos, or in fact, diamond art. And what I really love is that there's kind of like this collective sigh when I go into these groups and I see that we're sharing what we love. We're sharing, specifically in diamond painting, like when we do when we have a haul, when we start YouTube channels, or even when we decide to do a skin tone conversion because we want more representation in the art that we're buying from these companies, specifically from Diamond Art Club. Yeah, I called them out. And so it's really nice to have that common ground with women that love this art, they love this hobby, but I think also too we want to see ourselves in the hobby. About a month ago, there was actually a situation where one of the women in the group got blocked from the Diamond Art Club VIP group because she asked about Diamond Art Club's plans to not only offer more diverse art, but also offer up diverse art from more diverse artists, specifically Black artists. Diamond Art Club doesn't have many. I mean, Geneva Bowers and Raw Sushi are two that I know of. But outside of that, I don't think they have any. And there are plenty of Black artists that their artwork would be fantastic diamond paintings, and we would absolutely buy them. You know what I mean? But they're not there. And the response that was given to this woman is that that's just not something that they do. And they blocked her and basically said, you can still purchase from Diamond Art Club, but you cannot be in this group. For Diamond Art Club, that was trash. And I don't that just wasn't the move. I think you can have your answer, that's totally fine, but then to also actively block someone from the community that is supposed to be for everyone is very exclusive. That is an exclusive thing to do. I think Diamond Art Club has also been the ones to delete comments and stuff like that, and I don't like that type of behavior. But I think, we do get Black art every once in a while. We'll get a couple of pieces for Black History Month, and then we'll get some other pieces scattered in here and there. But we really don't see a lot of representation, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of the girls do skin tone conversions on Miss Butterdee and on Chrissa Bugs, because we want to see ourselves in the artwork that we love to work on. But I feel like in this community, it's very, very similar, I think, to a lot of other communities that I've been a part of, specifically the planner community, in that when something happens that has a direct impact on Black women, white women in the community don't say anything. And that is like really frustrating because white women, their voices are often the loudest and the ones that are heard most often. But because I feel like a lot of white women would rather kind of keep the peace and, just stick to crafting, which is totally fine. I feel like the whole era of see something, say something just doesn't happen. You can't necessarily call yourself an ally if you're not willing to call people to the table when they are doing anti-Black or even racist, prejudiced things. And I kind of think that like when things like that happen, like we were definitely talking about it in the group that I was in, but I didn't see any other mainstream, diamond art painters talking about it. And that's fine. You don't necessarily have to. But again, if this is if this is something that's for everyone, why not talk about it? Why not say, I heard this thing that happened and it was wrong. And I'm very disappointed in Diamond Art Club for doing this, right? That doesn't necessarily happen. And to be honest, I didn't really hear anybody really talking about this thing that happened with this lady, which is really unfortunate. And the lady, very, very nice lady. And I don't think actually she's going to be purchasing with Diamond Art Club anymore. And quite frankly, I don't blame her. I don't think that it's a lot to ask these companies to provide art from artists that we see ourselves in. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. And the fact that, she got blocked like that, I think was just incredibly disrespectful and she didn't deserve that. And in my humble opinion, Diamond Art Club owes her an apology because, you guys weren't, saying that she can't be in the group when she was spending the money, and waking up early for the releases and doing all of those things. But, the minute she asked to be represented in a piece of art, that was the barrier. That was the line, right? So anyway, there's something else that I wanted to talk about here real quick about representation and about how this community I do think could do better. And that's with the recent Crafters Paradise retreat. So overall, I think that the Crafters Paradise retreat, the idea, the concept, I think is fantastic. I mean, who doesn't want, to go someplace that's awesome, do your craft, hang out with your friends and get free shit for 4 days? Like, I would absolutely love to do that, especially when you can just hang out and, the pressures of the world or your family and your friends and all of those things or work aren't around you, right? But I recently had a conversation with some fellow diamond painters about the retreat and a photo that was posted. And, it is what it is. I first just want to start off by saying I'm not mad that I couldn't go. I'm not mad that I didn't get invited. I'm not jealous that I didn't get free stuff. I'm not saying any of that because that really has nothing to do with anything. Quite honestly, when Crafters Paradise was going on, I was in DC anyway. So there's that. But the first thing that was pointed out that you could visibly see in that photo is the absence of color. There was not one Black woman in that photo. As far as I know, there were no women of color. And then I come to find out that this was definitely an invite-only event. It did have sponsors like, Simply Gilded and Shire Shenanigans and Jada Gem Shop and Diamond Art Club, which great, But I guess my question is, if this was a private event, it was a private event, and that's okay, right? But at the same time, what was the reason for the absence of color? Like, there weren't any Black or brown diamond painters that could have gotten that invite and could have been represented. And I guess the other thing is that there were some pretty, bigger names in the diamond painting world that were there. And my question is this: I am still trying to wrap my brain around the fact that how is it that in the year of our Lord and Beyonce 2026, can anybody sit in a room and not recognize and realize that there are no people of color in there? Like, that kind of sucks, And I think that if this hobby is truly inclusive, then why not include? You know what I mean? Like, and, I already know there are probably going to be a bunch of things if anybody ever sees this video. And for the people that do see it, I want to have this conversation in the comments because, again, I'm not mad about anything. I just am wondering why. Why is it that we are still in 2026 and it's almost like taboo to see Black women in sitting down and enjoying a hobby like this one? Why is it that we are still having to fight for inclusion? We're having to fight for a space at the table. But yet, for all of these people, we shop at your shops, we subscribe to your YouTube channels, we use your discount codes, we comment, we like, share, and subscribe. When we get into when our friends get into diamond painting and we're like, oh my God, you got to go follow so and so, you got to follow this person, they're great, you're gonna love their content. So, but you're telling me that y'all really sat there for 4 days and was just totally fine with the fact that there was no Black women in that room. You weren't building community with any of us who also love this hobby as much as y'all do. Like, real talk, y'all, that was mad disappointing. And I think what it is that I'm kind of like at that point right now where I'm tired of asking this question and getting like the same old response, right? So I already know the response. Well, I didn't organize it. It was this person. And, this, that. It's like, okay, whatever. Okay, that's totally fine. But it's only when people get called to the table on these types of things, on these types of questions, where they start to really recognize the harm that they actually are doing. And like I said, I could understand if this was something that was, totally private and, we didn't want anyone else to come or anything like that. But again, if this is a hobby that a lot of people are supposed to enjoy and love and things like that, then why not expand it out to other people and really try to build more community with others that may not look like you? So I say all that to say that and some of the some of the women that I was talking to, were now floating around an idea to say, hey, maybe we need to have a Black women's diamond painting retreat, so just so then that way, even though there is a community, but it's very clear that the community doesn't really want us at the table. So we need to do what Shirley Chisholm said and just bring a folding chair to our own fucking table is basically what it is. I would absolutely when I tell you, if there was a diamond painting retreat, well, really, I would go regardless. But if it was one that was just like, yo, this Black women, we going and we doing it, period. Like I'm in there like swimwear, But I just feel like what's gonna happen, especially like after I made this commentary, is, oh, well, we want to have you at the table. Okay, but you didn't. You didn't, and I'm not saying like me specifically, but like you specifically did not have Black women at the table, so you really don't want us there. If you wanted us there, we would have been there, because we have space too. Like if there's truly space in this community for everybody, it doesn't really feel like it because it doesn't really feel like space is actually being made. And, I also think too that, I think one of the beauties of YouTube is that when it comes to diamond painting, there are some really awesome content creators out there. There are some really awesome Black women that are making content about diamond painting. And they're talking not only about diamond painting, but also just about their lives in general. And what I really love about seeing Black women sharing their lives on social media, and especially in this crafter space, is that it is slowly but surely breaking down a lot of those stereotypes that we've had to live with basically all of our lives. Like I was born in 86. And so the strong Black woman stereotype has been following me around literally since birth. And actually it still kind of is based on a conversation that I recently had with some family members, and we'll talk about that later. But, I feel like one of the things I really love about Black women creating content in the crafting space or even in the planning space is that they're creating content that reflects showing basically what Bell Hooks said, in that rest is revolutionary. And Black women, we have to start resting. We have to start saying no. We have to start doing things for ourselves and doing things that bring us joy. And if diamond art brings us joy, then we absolutely should be doing it. And I just think that it is kind of sad that we're Black women, we're doing it. We're also supporting all of these creators, but this one thing happened and like nobody said boo about it. Like I've watched quite a few videos about the Crafters Paradise retreat and no one has mentioned, it was kind of weird. There were no Black women there, which just kind of reminds me that in a lot of instances, white women do have an easier propensity to remain complacent and really not notice those things until someone points it out. So, and that's no tea, no shade. That's just history. So, anyway, those are my 2 cents. But I also just want to go ahead and say real quick here on this channel that reiterate for however many times, this is a channel where, again, I wake up and I live my life every day as a Black woman. If there are things in the world that are happening that I feel like are truly affecting myself and the people in my community, then I'm absolutely going to talk about those things. This channel will never be, we're not going to talk about the tough things because the world is hard enough. So, let's just shut up and craft. That's not going to happen because I can tell you right now, one of the number one reasons why I do craft is because of the stress of the world and the things that are actually happening in the world. And so for me, crafting helps all of those things. And it helps me have better alignment as I am dealing with all of the stuff because it's been a lot. Like the whole thing about Ryan Clark actually hit me like kind of hard. And like I said, I wrote about it on my Substack, which I will absolutely put in the description box below for you guys. And also, again, just it really got me thinking like about my podcast because there's something else actually in reference to that Cam Newton said. Cam Newton is another one that got fired, which I was really sad to see because I don't agree with everything that Cam Newton says, but his football acumen is incredible. And so I loved watching him on Fridays and Mondays on First Take. But one of the things that he said is that, while it sucks, I loved what I did with ESPN for the short time that I was there and I learned a lot, but I'm going to be okay. And that's because, Cam Newton has done a really good job of building a platform for himself with Fourth and One and Funky Fridays. Or is it Funky Fridays? Yeah, it's Funky Fridays. And, he's absolutely right. And I just feel like, when no one wants to give you the space, you create the space for yourself. And that's kind of what I decided to do with this YouTube channel. That's what I decided to do with the Black Girl Iowa podcast. And it is very clear and evident that the Black women in this community that love diamond painting and they love this hobby, we really just need to do that for ourselves. So as you can see here, though, when it comes to this diamond painting, I'm almost there. I've got a little bit left here, but we are currently at 52 minutes on this WIP Chat. And so I think it is going to be time for me to go ahead and wrap it up and all of that good stuff. So I will be sure to put some pictures of my trip from DC. I'll probably share those in my vlog this weekend. It's a lot easier for me to edit those into my vlogs than my WIP Chats because I actually use my podcast software and platform to record my WIP Chats with my standing camera because it's just so much easier. So yeah, so I'll probably do that. But again, I had some really great pictures in DC, so I'll be sure to share those with you guys this weekend. If you liked this video, or scratch, if you got to this part of the video, go ahead and leave me a heart, a purple heart emoji, and let me know, what are your thoughts on representation in the community? Again, I want to make sure that we are keeping things respectful and from a perspective of learning and understanding. Honestly, if my channel is not your cup of tea based off of my opinions, that's okay. All right. I'm not going to be mad if people unfollow me or anything like that because I have learned in my 40 years of life, not everything is for everyone. But if you are here and you want to stay, I do appreciate it. And I would love to have this conversation because I really feel like conversations like this help us gain perspective on people. And it also really helps us try and become more holistic in our approach to crafting and making sure that we are truly inclusive to everyone in the community and not just a select few. So I'd love to start having that conversation in the comments with you guys, and again, let's just make sure we keep it cute and we keep it respectful. Otherwise, I'll delete your comment. I'll delete your comment and I will block you because disrespect is just the number one thing I will not tolerate. But if you did like this video, please make sure that you like, comment, subscribe, and share with somebody. Let me know also in the comments what you are working on and also what you finished in the month of July. I finished two. So I finished Black Panther and Tulips Galore, which again, the review for that will go up here sometime over the weekend. Also, the other thing that I do have coming up is I do have an unboxing of Romantic Madness and the desserts mini kits from Dreamer Designs. So I have that coming up on the channel. I'll probably get that out to you guys next week. And then also I have Axolotl and the Barbie minis coming from Diamond Art Club. So those are going to be a couple other ones that I have, including I'm also going to be working on some other videos this month about like what my storage is and then that I use, and then also what my setup is, because my setup is a little crazy and I think I want to change it. And I'd love to share it with you guys and hear your opinions on it. Also, if you are interested in listening to the Black Girl Iowa podcast while you're diamond painting, please go ahead and do so, as the Black Girl Iowa podcast can be found wherever you stream your podcast, including but not limited to Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, and right here on YouTube on my other channel, Black Girl Iowa. Signing off. This is Emily with Black Girl Diamonds. I love to diamond paint. Thank you so much for being with me today, and I will catch you guys on my next WIP Chat. Bye-bye.